Hey, this is Matt once again. What about some of the videos of the paid request? This time from Alex. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal, that's usually the best bet, or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. And this is for a New Zealand film called The Ugly from 1997. And I had heard of this film a long time ago because there was a DVD compilation. I think I still have it, called Buddy Man, where it's actually uploaded on YouTube, and someone even uploaded a version of it with the Robert Englund commentary. Because that's what's kind of, it was a collection of scenes from various horror films, mostly either Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, Pinhead, Chucky, I think Blade from Puppet Master. And that's how I first heard about The Guardian, William Friedkin's film, and this film. So it was interesting to see Robert Englund kind of talk a bit about each of these. Although I think the one on YouTube, they could not use Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I guess they probably got a copyright on it. But I'm sure if you... It's a compilation that you don't really need nowadays unless you just insanely curious about Robert Englund's commentary. And again, someone uploaded it on YouTube. But it's kind of one of those interesting little nuggets of time, nuggets of interest in a time period where DVD was still fairly new thing, new idea. And it was also like with all these famous icons of horror, Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers, Leatherface. It's like, oh, and Drusilla from The Guardian, and this movie called The Ugly? What's this? I'm like, okay, that's a bit different. So it's directed by a guy named Scott Reynolds that really didn't go on to do much. He did some films I never heard of called Heaven, When Stranger Appears. He didn't really go on to do anything. And I remember this film did get some buzz. Some, especially in award circuits, foreign circuits. And the story, I know Alex mentioned a lot of movies to compare it to. Really, the only one is Silence of the Lambs, maybe a bit of Carrie. But those are really the only two things that come to mind for comparison. It's about this female psychologist. She's sent to evaluate this killer. Because the killer, Simon, played by this actor, Paolo Rotondo, he says he's cured. She's sent in to evaluate to see if this guy is full of shit or not. It's a movie of its time where you get a lot of flashy editing. When killings happen, it's a lot of shaky cam. Which I don't mind in this. Kind of works in the vein of the killer not being in his right state of mind. Fractured, so the camera's kind of acting like his mind being so frizzled and fractured like that. There's these two orderlies that will beat the shit out of the guy or abuse him or spit in his food. These two guys, I mean, they were so over the top, they felt like they were Rob Zombie alumni. They felt like they would be the two orderlies from Rob Zombie's Halloween who would, like, fuck the girl in front of Michael Myers. So, those two guys was a bit over the top. And the warden of this asylum, I don't know what his deal is. You didn't really get a handle what his deal is because it's like he knows something's up, but he doesn't really want to say anything. Especially at the end, you're going, what is up with this fucking guy? Like, what's his story? But a good chunk of it is in the span of about 2 or so days. The psychiatrist talking with Simon, and then Simon telling his story. Is, you know, the typical serial killer stuff. He was a kid. Well, most people were. Well, we were all kids. But when he was a kid, his mom would beat him, would abuse him, would tell him that his father doesn't love them. But then if you looked at the letters, his father really did love him and wanted him to live with him because he's rich. But the mom was so psycho and crazy. She ignored that, and she would beat him up, and he would get bullied at school to a point that his face got fucked up at one point. But there's that one girl who's a friend of his during those times of school. So, okay, he's bullied at school. He has an abusive parent, this case a mom. He has that one friend that could keep him kind of not over the edge, but on edge, on that precipice before he falls to the chasm of madness. And it's non-linear flashbacks. So it'll be showing him as a kid, then it'll show him like at work, at this job where someone put a dead animal in his locker, which I don't know what kind of fucking joke that is. Makes them just as psycho. Then go back to this, going back to that. And then sometimes the flashbacks will have the psychiatrist in them as she's talking to Simon. But she's also in the flashback as well. So you did some decent stylistic choices. Also, the idea that the director decided to use either black, white, silver, red, or blue. So other than black and white, like normal, it's you either see silver, red, or blue colors. So someone's wearing a red dress or someone's wearing a blue dress, and it's interesting. Okay, different type of look for the film. Give his distinct style. I think the guy who plays Simon did a really good job. Because they're trying to give a bit of a Norman Bates, trying to make us feel sorry for the guy, and I think the actor's doing as good of a job as he can. And I thought the actress that played the psychiatrist, she wasn't doing too bad of a job either. I think they were both pretty solid in their roles. Another stylistic choice the director had. Sorry, I don't know why I'm getting the hiccups. I'm so scared of the movie. Is that when he kills someone, or he blames the killings on this ghostly force called the Ugly, that are apparently his past victims haunting him and telling him to do this. And it makes it harder and harder to not do it. That's what he says. So he'll see these ghostly figures with this. The blood is always black. It's always black. So when he kills someone, or he mostly slitting throats, or he sees these ghostly visions and they're bleeding from their mouths, it's all black. It's always black. That probably also helped with the MPAA to not fuck with their rating too much. Because if it's black, then you could say it's bile. I mean, you could create other bullshit. Just red won't be as intense or vicious, I guess, of a color to see. So, as I'm watching this, I can appreciate the style. I like the two leads. Like I said, it's mostly flashbacks. And then this meeting, this interrogation at the hospital amongst these 2 days. So it was done on a low budget. They did what they could. But it is the typical killer backstory we've seen dozens of times. The jump scares got old. Like there's a bit where she's thinking of loosening his restraints. And he goes, I'm not going to hurt anybody. So she does it. He attacks her. But then, nope, that was in his mind. Then the same thing. Then he attacks her. It was in his mind. So he literally did a fucking jump scare 2 times in a row. Like, or the psychiatrist is in bed and she gets attacked. But then she wakes up. So a lot of those jump scares, they got old quick. And you never really... The movie sets up all these questions, but its purpose is not to give you any answers. I get this being ambiguous with that, but I think some movies have done that better than others. This was more annoying than anything by doing that, at least for me. Just overall, at the end of the day, I didn't mind the film. It was a short enough movie that it didn't feel too stretched out or boring. They do play with you as a viewer as to whether you should sympathize with this guy or not. And they did in the spoilers. Either A, he's telling the truth and these ghosts are actually haunting him and making him do this and forcing him to do this. Or B, he's just being very manipulative and he's crazy. And you're thinking, okay, well, it seems like he's pushing more for this ghost, but also it could be that he has telekinetic powers. In fact, if you watch the Boogeyman DVD compilation, it in text it says that he has telekinetic powers, but at the same time, you don't really see him showcase that a lot, other than maybe he's kind of maybe he sees this and then he's making other people see it. Is it part of his split personality? Because there are times he looks in a mirror and he'll see a scarred version of himself, when we see that no, he looks perfectly fine, but he sees this scarred up version. So again, either the ghosts were real, or he has a split personality and his telekinetic powers are making people. Because during the course, early on, there's another female inmate that puts on these glasses, like 3D glasses, and she can see the ghosts. You may miss it, but you could see that she sees this stuff. And then later on, the psychiatrist, when the Simon attacks her, she starts seeing the ghosts. Now, whether the movie wants to say that he's so crazy that it's almost like an infection, and by alluding to it so many times, it makes other people see them, or by his telekinetic powers, that's the only way he uses it. He made these people see what he thinks he sees. Because unlike Terry, where you see Terry do other stuff telekinetically, move objects, do all this stuff, you don't really see him do much of any of that when he's a kid. And also, if he wants to show these horrible visions, why does he show it to the two shitty inmates who's giving him shit all the time? Like, these two people that are beating you up daily and spitting in your food. Why wouldn't you show them these terrible ghost visions and fuck with their heads? I didn't understand that. Like, if you're able to show these visions, why don't you show it to these two orderlies who are fucking with you, beating you up and spitting in your food? I don't understand why he didn't do that. I didn't get that. I'm sorry. I was confused by that part. Spoilers at the end. He's about how it's harder and harder to fight them off. And he tells a story about how the girl he liked, Julie, when she grew up, they got back together and they became an item for a bit, but then he kills her, just like Simon then attacks the psychiatrist. That was some decent editing to go back and forth between the two. Of course, she's freaked out, she leaves. Simon attacks the two orderlies, kills them. Then when he leaves, the warden is there with the female inmate, and the female inmate's going, she deserves it. And the warden just lets the guy go and calmly says, well, I guess we need to call the cops. I'm like, so what is the deal with the warden? And why did he let this guy go? And I'm supposed to think maybe he's as evil as Simon, so he allowed this to happen? Or he saw these visions? Or so he's like, fuck you, I'm not going to get in your way. And Simon let one person go in his flashback, a deaf girl? Does he also? Why does he just kill these two people? Does he let them go? Does he how they're damaged as well? I guess he's supposed to just think about all this stuff, but to me, it leaves so much up in the air. Same with the ending where Simon's in her room and says, "I'm cured," and when he looks in the mirror, now he doesn't see a star on his face. So I'm like, okay. But then he attacks her, slits her throat, but then she wakes up. She goes back to sleep. Then we see a ghost. Then we see just she's sleeping. Then blood appears. And I'm sitting there going, okay, well, number one, she was perfectly fine. Then when this blood appears, she's not like gasping or anything. She's just, then his blood appears. Like, why did that happen? All the other times we see that he cuts the throat. Or did he cut her throat telekinetically? So can he cut throats telekinetically? If that's the case, why the fuck did he just cut the two orderlies, cut their throats telekinetically, and just, fuck it. Give me your shit, I'm gone, bitches. That's what I mean, it's just, a lot of it doesn't make any fucking sense. If this is all in his mind, then why are we seeing this girl fine, and then all of a sudden, her neck is fine, and all of a sudden the blood appears. And she's fine, and she's like trying to drop. If he could do this telekinetically, why didn't he do it to the two orderlies? Why didn't he do it to so many other people? If he could just do this with his mind. I don't fucking know. I'm sure people have their own explanations, but I'm sure people have completely different explanations. And that kind of stuff just annoyed the piss out of me. Now, there's other movies that are ambiguous. Session 9, for example. But that ambiguousness I actually liked. Because it could be just this guy went crazy, or maybe he was influenced by the evil of that place. And I always forget that line. I live in the weak and the wounded. Where do you live, Simon? Funny enough, Simon, another guy named Simon. I live in the weak and the wounded. So maybe something influenced him and gave him that tip, or maybe something else. So I like that more. And then, The Shining. You see the photo with him in the hotel, and makes you think, well, he did say that it feels like he's been here before. Maybe it's a sign of reincarnation, or maybe he's been kind of absorbed into the house because he died there. And here, though, I can appreciate some of the direction of the film, the use of color schemes, the look of these ghosts with the black blood coming out is a creepy image. The lead guy did a really good job playing the character and trying to make me feel sympathy for him, whether that was a bit manipulative state and he was bullshitting the whole time, or it's a split personality where he has a good side and his bad side. So I don't know if it's more of a primal fear situation, which that's a better movie about a god manipulating someone where you think he's one thing and he's a totally different one. Primal Fear with Edward Norton. This is a movie that was interesting to watch. I would never watch again, though. I would never watch the film again. Like I said, it just leaves a lot of questions. I don't think the ending was that satisfying. I didn't think the film was that scary. I think a lot of the middle portion was kind of typical serial killer stuff that we've seen a lot of his backstory. It's well acted. I'll give you that. But I don't know. If he's telekinetic, there's a lot of questions that arise of why didn't he do this, why didn't he do that. If he's not telekinetic, then again there's more questions like why did this happen, why did that happen, were the ghosts real, why was the warden such a weirdo. The female inmate, did Simon put the images into her brain as well? For what reason? Did Simon do that to the female inmate just for the shits and giggles? Or the ghosts are real, but then like I said, no matter how I look at it, it confuses me more than anything. And like I said, I do appreciate the acting, but I'll just go watch Silence of the Lambs if I want to see this kind of back and forth rapport. So I didn't hate the film. I would say I didn't mind it as a watch. It is again 90 minutes long and went by quick, but I would never see the film again. So that's just my opinion. With that said, thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll see you guys later. Bye bye.